Hello and welcome to part 1 of this audio series, Near-Death Insights and Humanity's Near Future. I discuss our accelerating pole shift, Earth changes, and we go into a deeper dive into relevant prophecy that is unfolding now. My intention in producing this short audio series is to present a more macrocosmic view around what we are facing as a human species. And all of this includes the earth changes, also political changes, the wars, economic instability, and social unrest that we are facing all at the same time. If we understand all of this, we can perhaps have time to position ourselves or prepare our loved ones and our families for the mega changes that are ahead of us. This audio offers grounded scientific perspectives, along with biblical and indigenous prophecy, which are all coinciding, giving us this congruent, higher perspective and clarity of what's actually happening on planet Earth. My name is Matya Marta, and the reason that I'm addressing the bigger picture of our human situation is because early in life I had 2 near-death experiences in which I was divinely shown the prophetic significance of these times. And these experiences set the direction of my life's path, which motivated me to find indigenous elders who would help me understand the deeper meanings of the experiences that I had in near death. When I began to hear their prophecies, I realized that my own near-death experiences also coincide with the central themes of their prophetic teachings. And then I investigated into astrophysical science in learning about the great changes that our solar system is going through. Our sun is going through great changes, and also finding astonishing parallels with my own near death. And then I went in to investigate biblical scripture and discovered there were also scriptures that mirrored the near-death experiences. And that is when I came to realize that I was truly onto something significant. And this is when I began to build the confidence to share what I believe to be an exquisite macrocosmic clarity, a soul clarity of where we are at in our evolutionary process and how we can prepare ourselves for what is coming. You may be surprised that a lot of these perspectives are quite positive. When it comes to indigenous wisdom and prophecy, this is difficult to find because these teachings were preserved in their oral traditions rather than in books. And I had the good fortune to hear directly from many elders all over this world, from many cultures, who generously shared their prophecies with both my daughter and myself over a span of decades. And I will share some of these wisdom gems from these elders throughout this audio series. I also offer updates on the earth changes that are taking place in our sun and in our solar system, and how all of these planetary changes will affect our consciousness. And yes, we are living in dangerous times. And that is why I believe the ancient prophecies and scriptures warned us. They gave us signs to look for in the heavens, signs to look for on earth, and signs to look for in the people that would indicate that, yes, we are indeed in the last days of a grand era of time. And I also go into explaining how these higher perspectives are are calming to all of us on a soul level, because when we understand why things are the way they are, there is some kind of an inner mechanism that empowers us, and it's easier to face. Even if these changes are difficult, it is much easier to face them when we again understand why things are the way they are. The prophecies gave us instructions in how to navigate these times in a way that would protect our souls, in a way that would protect our inner well-being while we were facing it and enduring these radical changes. Many people do not know that there are over 30 ancient cultures that speak of an ending of a grand era of time and the beginning of another grand era. And all of these ancient writings and prophecies are pointing to this time. The indigenous elders refer to this time as the Great Purification. Our elders speak of this world that we're living in now as the fourth world, and the Great Purification is the transitional phase between the fourth world and the fifth world. And life is bringing us into this transitional phase right now. In part 2, I will toggle back and forth between science and prophecy, where I go into more detail of how our sun is in great flux, how our Earth's magnetic pole shift is accelerating, how our magnetosphere is weakening, and why all the other planets are also going through similar and significant changes. In part 2, I'm also going to go into more detail of how our consciousness is being upgraded and is also changing along with the planetary and the cosmic forces. In part 3 of this audio, I will share more of my own near-death experiences and the divine messages that I received. All of this occurred when I was a teenager and hiking alone in the northern Canadian Rockies. I also share details of an angelic visitation whose message reveals how our bodies and our consciousness will be adapting to these changes. This offers all of us a macrocosmic clarity, clarity on a soul level of what is happening with our human species in this particular juncture, this critical juncture of our evolutionary process. I will leave you with excellent links that verify the science that I am presenting, and I also offer links on how to prepare on the physical level, because a lot of our modern systems will be compromised in the coming months and years. With all of that said, let's dive into part 2. This is Matya signing out of part 1. Hello friends, this is Matya Marta with part 2 of the audio series Where Science and Prophecy Concur. How the cosmic and planetary changes are affecting human consciousness, and how the galactic current sheet is a major factor in our evolutionary transition. Ample evidence points to a massive cosmic wave of energy which orbits through our solar system approximately every 12 to 13,000 years. And this galactic wave of energy is not only cyclical, but it is already moving through our solar system now. It has already been radically affecting all of the planets, because they too, like Earth, are going through magnetic and atmospheric changes. This cosmic wave of energy that's much larger than our solar system is called the galactic current sheet. The closer this wave of energy drifts towards our sun, its highly charged ion particles will agitate the sun. And this causes the sun to release stronger and stronger solar flares, coronal mass ejections, and the astrophysicists feel that the probability of a mini nova event. In addition, this will trigger the pole shift and likely crustal displacement. A mini nova means that the outer shell explodes into the solar system. Right before this mini nova event, the sun turns black because it's getting ready to explode the outer shell. And this cosmic blast will no doubt not go unnoticed by the inhabitants on this planet. However, the scientists are optimistic that some people will survive this. That is, if they're in the right place at the right time and prepared for impact. I reference and credit Ben Davidson and his website at Suspicious Observers. Ben has a strong scientific voice in revealing the reality of this galactic current sheet. You will hear directly from him in scientific language how the galactic current sheet is affecting Earth's magnetosphere, the pole shifts, our atmosphere, our climate, and is the predominant culprit of these intense Earth changes. I also have to mention here that geoengineering, tower frequencies, and corporate pollution are also major culprits of our compromised biosphere. The fact that this cyclical cosmic timing of this galactic wave of energy is now drifting through our solar system is also confirmed through geologic, stratigraphic, fossilized evidence, ice core samples, as well as anthropological and historical records, all verifying how ancient cultures describe similar cataclysmic planetary upheavals approximately every 12 to 13,000 years. There are cycles that have other cataclysmic events, but the granddaddy of these planetary cycles and the more massive cataclysmic events happens around 12 to 13,000 years. From an anthropological perspective, we can find references to this tremendous planetary shift in Sumerian and Hindu texts, also in Peruvian, Incan, and Chinese myths. In Buddhism, in the Sermon of the Seven Suns, also describes the 7 stages of our sun's transformation and the return of Buddha's rays, which is said will change the people. Just as in Christianity, of course, we have the return of Christ, or the second coming. Again, all of which corroborate with one another in similar ways, and which also perfectly aligns with the timing of the galactic current sheet and its orbital arrivement back into our solar system. And then many of these ancient stories also refer to the 3 days of darkness, or the 3 days of light on the other side of the planet, which also fits this astrophysical dynamics of a pole shift. Now let's go into indigenous perspective. In essence, the worldwide indigenous prophetic teachings recommend that all people live in a way that follows the original instructions of our Creator, and that is to live in a simple, natural, and pure way according to the laws of nature. This theme of living in harmony with nature is central to indigenous wisdom and prophecy. Many signs have already come to pass, letting us know that we are certainly in the season of prophecies unfolding. Some of these prophetic signs we're seeing in the skies, such as more frequent and unusual sightings, bizarre lights, skyquakes, anomalies, unusual auroras, and increased UFO sightings. The prophecies also spoke of signs among the people. For example, in the Hopi prophecy, it mentions how men and women would be gender confused, not knowing if they were a man or a woman. Now, in biblical language, we can clearly see the manifestation of Revelation 6, which refers to the 4 horsemen who are bringing deception, famine, war, conquering of nations, pestilence, and death. I'm emphasizing deception there. There are certainly ways to mitigate or avoid or divert some of these negative forces, and I'll repeat these throughout this audio. What I have found to be the most important point the various elders always emphasized was first and foremost to make our relationship right with our Creator. In scripture, this mirrors in Matthew 6:33. First ye seek the kingdom of God, and all else shall be added unto thee. Our elders understood that by connecting more deeply with our divine source, we're able to hold on to a sound mind and possibly survive the great purification through divine protection and guidance. We may not yet realize just how important this statement is until changes affect our way of life. Also, the Hopi prophecies said that many people would become insane as we near the end of the fourth world. Now, how are solar changes and earth changes affecting our consciousness? Keep in mind the principle of as above, so below. Because of our weakening Earth's protective shield, we're being bombarded with cosmic rays and radiation. Our bodies are not accustomed to the great influx of this radiation. And there are many factors affecting our health and the state of our minds within the day-to-day, so it could be challenging to detect if we are experiencing effects from the cosmic rays and cosmic plasma that's penetrating all the way into our planet. What we do know is that this influx of radiation can cause heart issues, nervous system issues, and can create a sense of stress, anxiety, or emotional distress. On the other hand, some people are feeling increased energy, increased sensitivities in consciousness, psychic abilities, positive spiritual supernatural occurrences such as spontaneous healings or prophetic dreams, and these type of occurrences are happening more frequently all over the world. As the indigenous elders explained, those who have a strong relationship with our Creator are the ones who are more likely to survive, will stay sane, and who will find their way. In 1 John 2:17 states, "And the world is passing away along with its desires, but whoever does the will of God abides forever." During these changes, we will become more acutely aware of the consequences of our thoughts and actions. Our conscience will probably have a stronger and stronger voice within us so that we can do more forgiveness and help the healing between our loved ones. And we'll come to understand the karmic consequences of our past on a personal level, and we'll understand the karmic consequences of the collective level as well. Now, I personally believe it was the galactic current sheet that I witnessed in near death over 40 years ago when I had been catapulted into the solar system after nearly dying from severe hypothermia in the mountains. If my own near death is accurate, a cosmic wave of light will bring a galactic tsunami of divine love, which entirely purifies Earth, upgrades consciousness significantly, and delivers us all into a utopian age. As way out there as it sounds, between prophetic perspective and science, these near-death experiences seem a little bit more plausible. I'll share the details of the near-death experiences in part 3, and these also give us more divine guidance and clarity on a soul level of what's happening in this transition. In 2 Peter 3:13, "But according to his promise, we are waiting for new heavens and a new earth in which righteousness dwells." In 2 Peter 3:10, it states, "But the day of the Lord will come like a thief, And then the heavens will pass away with a roar, and the heavenly bodies will be burned up and dissolved, and the earth and the works that are done on it will be exposed. Our elders remind us this is a time of vigilance. It's a time of prayer and a time of keeping our discipline strong and our faculty sharp. In Matthew 24:29, it states, "Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken." In 1 Peter 4:7, it states, "Then the end of all things is at hand. Therefore be self-controlled and sober-minded for the sake of your prayers." So obviously this is a time of completions, it's a time of forgiveness, and a time to remember to cherish every moment of life. With the broad strokes among the prophecies and the science, what is revealed clearly is the nature of what is unfolding. If we are ending a grand cycle of time, then the weather anomalies and increased geological activity make sense. Likewise, the radical social upheavals and wars also make sense within this backdrop of a collective karmic cleansing to prepare us for the next phase of our human evolution. Another common thing among the prophecies is that humanity will no doubt be victorious as we culminate the end of this era. This is said to be certain. I personally think being victorious means the corrupted and evil forces will be defeated. It means the meek shall inherit the earth. It means that we learn from what went wrong here on earth, and we retain our soul's wisdom, and we have earned the right to live out the next phase of our evolutionary course as a species. In Psalm 37:29, it states, "The righteous shall inherit the land and dwell upon it forever." The intensity of these planetary, political, and social upheavals are most likely going to take a lot of the masses out. But are we not forever beings? And do we not all face death at some point anyways? My own near-death experiences have convinced me that each soul will be lovingly delivered after death to where that soul can progress on its proper evolutionary course. But I also believe that each soul must resist the influences and pulling of evil that will also be a strong force in our planet during this transitionary period. It definitely will be testing us. On a conventional level, we have the wars, we have social unrest, violence, malefic political agendas, system failures, pharmaceuticals and chemicals that will result in more disease, famine, and massive deaths. In Revelation 6, it sums this up in verse 8, describing the pale horseman. "And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and hell followed with him, and power was given unto them over the fourth part of earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beasts of earth." This is a good time to repeat the truth that this physical realm is temporary, and our souls are forever. On another side note, the Bible recommends that we keep doing business throughout these changes, if at all possible. In Luke 18:16, it states, "Engage in business until I come." Obviously, that means the second coming of Christ. We can further ground this prophetic and scientific information touching into the scholarly work of Graham Hancock, a very well-known anthropologist, and also with David Wilcock, who both lean into the solar flash theory. Now, given that each of these people have many decades of research and a lot of integrity of knowledge, I have respect for their concluding theories. Plus, this solar flash theory dovetails nicely with how the galactic current sheet will agitate our sun and cause stronger and stronger solar flares, CMEs, and ultimately a mini nova. Check out Ben Davidson's work and his website, Suspicious Observers. He carefully watches solar activity and cosmic changes on the daily. He also gives approximate timelines of his guesstimate of when this is all going down. And I believe I heard him say most likely within the next 10 or 20 years, but please check me on that when you visit his site. And then in addition to that, Ben offers his best guess at where on Earth people would be more likely to survive the galactic current sheet or the mini nova. Now, regarding consciousness changes, the scripture, I believe, is very relevant for our times, and that's Matthew 24:4, that states, "Take heed that no man deceives you." I would also like to personally translate that to take heed that no government deceives you. Take heed that no corporation or media deceives you. And then the scriptures also state that, "And my people perish from lack of knowledge." So now we can clearly see there is a battle playing out on Earth, and it is attacking our pure genetic seed to continue the human race. Which brings in a good moment to mention Mark 18:16. Wait, it's 16:18. I think it's 16:18. Please correct me on that. Which can offer soul comfort for people who have to deal with environmental or internal poisoning, because I'm paraphrasing on this one. I believe it is Mark 16:18, where you can drink poison, but it will not harm you. You can hold a snake, but it will not harm you. Now, as far as the references and links to sky anomalies, you can find a lot of that on Mr. MBB333. That's Mr. MBB333. And he does a daily report on sky watching and weather anomalies. People send videos from all over the world. And there's a lot of really interesting things that you can see on his site. Another site for seeing crazy sky anomalies is on That's Impossible channel on YouTube. So check out David Wilcock's work, because he's an amazing researcher, scientist, inventor, author, and he has delved into the ascension principle that touches on several of the principles that I've covered here, but he approaches it from a much more exquisite scholarly perspective. And I also highly encourage listeners to go to Brighteon platform for truth beyond the matrix controlled information system. In part 3, I shift the pace of this audio and share spiritually intimate details and highlights of my own near-death experiences. And then in part 4, I offer a brief synopsis that to all that we have covered, illuminating this macrocosmic view of our evolutionary transition. This is Mattia signing out of part 2. Hello friends, this is Mattia with part 3 of the audio series Divine Messages from Near Death Regarding Humanity's Future. So when I was a teenager, I walked out of civilization into the pristine wilderness of the northern Canadian Rockies. And I did that because growing up in civilization, everything felt wrong to me. Schools and teachers, TV, everything felt wrong. I also felt like something was terribly wrong with myself too. But I had an intuitive knowing that the wilderness would heal me. And my young mind also had an intense desire to understand reality. I wanted to understand what it means to be human. And I had a strong desire to know how to survive on my own planet. I felt ashamed that I did not know how to survive on my own planet. So I went into the wilderness with no experience, well, minimal experience, no protection, no gun, and inadequate gear. But I was determined to have direct communication with Creator. And I knew that the wilderness would help me understand the bigger picture of reality. So I ended up hiking hundreds of miles through the mountainous wilderness of the north, and I was eventually able to, well, at least to some extent, experience our symbiotic human relationship with nature. Of course, I would be bumbling my way and would have several brushes with death, and two of these are what I believe to be true near-death experiences. Now let's go into the first one. When I was already deep into my journey near the Arctic Circle, I'd been caught up in a rainstorm at night, and I did not have a tent. Usually I was more vigilant and tucked in under rocks or built a little shelter, but this night I got completely drenched. And by morning, I shockingly found myself entirely paralyzed, completely paralyzed from hypothermia. And then I was startled by a wolf swarm nuzzle sniffing my face and then disappeared. Then I found myself reverberating. I felt like I was in between worlds, where I felt a bolt or a wave of divine love that was so intense, it fulfilled my soul. And I realized with a sense of absolute knowing that this divine love is where we are born from and where we return when we die. And then after that epiphany, suddenly I found myself hovering out in space and looking back at our beautiful, beautiful Earth. I found myself in this boundless, vast tranquility of space. And I was observing our solar system. I felt also completely enveloped by a loving presence. And this loving presence felt omniscient and omnipresent. I was fascinated looking at Earth, and I remember being mesmerized by the fact that Earth is one organism. And then to my right, far in the distance, I noticed a massive cosmic wave of light. It was soft grayish, and it was drifting slowly toward Earth. And the moment, the nanosecond, I became curious about this wave, I found myself inside of it, experiencing this galactic wave directly. It was made up of light particles, and these light particles were oscillating at the frequency of divine love. And this divine presence explained that this galactic wave will affect a significant evolutionary shift on Earth, and that this galactic wave is an evolutionary marker for humanity. I didn't get these downloads in words in English, but the presence was downloading messages into my psyche that felt absolutely crystal clear. And the loving presence continued to explain that humanity as a whole must raise our energy frequency to harmonize or resonate with this divine love by the time the galactic wave reaches Earth. And the presence emphasized that it's not enough that a few of us attune with divine love, but that as a whole, as a species, we must somehow attune or harmonize or resonate with this divine love. And this message, this divine message, felt like it was branded into my soul, and it did feel like an evolutionary imperative. And then suddenly everything went dark, and I was unconscious for an unknown time. When I opened my eyes, it was actually took quite a while before I was back into my body, where I felt like I came to my senses and I could feel my body, and finally opened my eyes. And the first thing that I saw was a wolf sitting next to me, right next to me, watching me as if she was waiting for me to open my eyes. And she was delighted to greet me. I also felt overjoyed to see her. And in that moment, I remember feeling some kind of a mind melt, realizing our primordial loving kinship. And immediately I had remembered her warm nuzzle in my face while I was paralyzed in that rain puddle, just before I was catapulted into the cosmos. I'm going to leave you listeners on this cliffhanger to encourage you to check out my book. It's all based on a true story. Everything I'm sharing here is true. And it is called Miracle in the Mountains, and you'll see it posted at the bottom of the screen. In my other near-death experience, after I had tumbled over and over and over down a hillside, the first thing I remember is that my spirit, or my consciousness, dove right down through the rocks and downward into earth. And there, I couldn't see anything, but I heard an ocean of voices that were pleading and crying and wailing and praying to Creator God to release them from their suffering. They were also pleading and praying to release the world from suffering and the wars and the governmental control and everything that was causing great stress and suffering on the earth. And then I found myself on the surface of earth on my hands and knees. I was perceiving a lot of things all at once. And I remember feeling like there had just been a massive cataclysmic earth-shaking event. And that this event had taken out most of the people. And I also perceived that this cataclysmic event had taken the grid out, and there was not one electronic device or machine that was still functioning on Earth. I remember this profound sense of relief that we would forever be free from government control, from a debt slave system, we'd be free from our bills, and we could finally experience freedom. It also felt like survival would not ever be an issue for us because we felt absolutely safe, enveloped in this divine love. And then what I was perceiving at that time was that the skylight, the daylight, was brighter than I had ever seen it before. I did not see a flash. I did not see the sun, but the daylight was amazingly bright. And then I was also perceiving that all of us who were still alive, my consciousness felt so big. It felt like it was big as the earth, and it was experiencing all of these things in real time. And I was perceiving that those of us who survived shifted into a unified consciousness where we were all aware of one another around the planet, and that we were all experiencing the same phenomena. And then we experienced this supernatural cosmic wave of divine love descend upon earth. It felt like heaven was descending upon earth, and it was uplifting it was uplifting life. It was uplifting all plants and all animals. And then at the same time, this tsunami of divine love was purifying all of earth. It was purifying the oceans and all the waters. It was purifying the forests and also the sky. And it also, what I was perceiving is that this wave of divine love was purifying humanity's karma. And then I had it was actually a rapture type of experience, because I was experiencing that we were all being lifted up into the clouds. And this was the moment that all of us were realizing our truest, deepest identity as sons and daughters of our Creator. This was also the moment when we were floating upward, when I remember thinking, this is the moment I've been waiting eons for. The feeling was beyond profound. It was ecstatic. There was a very powerful ecstatic sense of coming home. And then I was gifted this glimpse of a horizon, this huge horizon that I believe is the fifth forever world, because I was perceiving that this was forever, in which all beings are totally sovereign. We're all completely ecstatic to be alive and living in a new paradigm that is in harmony with all of life, all the animals, all of nature, in harmony with one another, in harmony with the universe, in a very, very, very exciting new beginning. And there was more to this near death, and I'm going to leave it at that for this audio. Again, you can find more details in the book. But there's one more mystical experience that I'd like to share that's also very relevant to the great shift that we're facing. When I was in the northern Arctic mountains, and this one night it was just past dusk, and I was beginning to fall asleep near our fire, and I felt and heard huge wings flutter over my body, and I sat up wondering, what the heck? And I noticed my wolf dog companion, Kluani, also sit up and look around. And then I felt this extraordinary peace. It was a nurturing peace that came over me. And this loving presence, it was a masculine voice, and it spoke with absolute clarity, just like a person speaking right next to me. And his voice was authoritative and loving, and he instructed, take in a deep breath. So I took in a deep breath, and with that breath I felt blissful waves of energy rolling gently through my body. And the angelic presence said, see? He even had that inflection. He goes, see? You will be breathing in most of your sustenance. Your bodies will become more light and less dense. You will need very little food. And then he explained that just by looking at a plant, you'll know if it is food or medicine. You can live anywhere on this earth, in the forest, the mountains, the deserts, anywhere, and you will need no possessions. And then I was sensing that this angelic presence had completed delivering his message, and I was feeling him begin to leave, so I asked, when will this happen? I did not hear an audible answer, but I felt a telepathic answer that said, later in life. Now, jumping forward in time, decades later, all of these divine messages have taken on deeper meaning and significance. As I had mentioned in part 1, these near-death experiences set the direction of my life. Because of the near-death experiences, I understood that I needed to train my mind to be more steady and focused in the present. It was obvious to me after I had experienced these phenomenal, amazing near-death that I needed to train my mind to be ready for my next death or an ascension transition. So when I returned to civilization, I immersed myself into martial arts and meditative traditions, and I stayed with the meditative training throughout the decades. Then recently I finished my book that goes into riveting details of this wilderness journey and the near-death experiences that I just shared. The book also reveals that by surrendering myself into the depths of the wilderness, I proved to myself that Creator does exist. that miracles are possible and that divine protection is real. And the story reminds us that, of course, we can live in soul-nourishing harmony with nature. So then I set up a website and offer services in meditative and awareness training. In Psalm 46:10 states, "Be still and know I am God." Meditation brings us into this experiential direct communion, so we can train our mind to abide more in the natural mind. The nature of mind is sky-like. It's open, it's bright, spacious, and free. So we can learn how to get a grip on ourselves and learn to be more calm and centered, which could actually be rather sanity-saving in times of chaos. If any of you listeners resonate with this work, you are welcome to contact me. I warmly invite you to check out my website. Again, it's posted at the bottom of the screen. Check out my book. My author name is Marta McCary. And then let's go to part 4, where we go into a brief synopsis of this audio series. This is Matya Marta signing out of part 3. Hello friends, this is Matya Marta with part 4 of the audio series Where Science and Prophecy Concur, Near Death and the Galactic Current Sheet, and Wisdom Teachings for a World in Chaos. After the initial wilderness immersion, my life's path visited many indigenous elders and tribes and lodges, some in faraway places. But for this audio, I'd like to leave you with a few of these wisdom gems. Our elders are all in agreement that we are in a great transition. And they spoke of the forever, quote unquote, forever fifth world, and that the transition of this age will be more intense than the 3 previous transitionary periods of the previous ages. And that's because the end of the fourth, is a grand completion. And they said that our brothers and sisters from the star nations would gather from all over the galaxy to bear witness to this great transition for Earth and the human species. The elders told us that it is a great honor to be alive in this time, and that Creator chose each soul to be here to witness the ending of an age and the beginning of a new age. They said that we are the ones who will remember the lessons of this time. The elders were told by their grandparents and their grandparents to hold on to their sacred ways and to stay close to their fireplaces. They were told to know where the water comes from and to know where their food comes from, because so much would be poisoned. They knew that we would have earthquakes and volcanoes and extreme weather, wars and social unrest, and they knew the ways of the modern world were not so good, and that life on Earth, all of life on Earth, would suffer because of humanity's imbalances. The elders spoke of the importance of prayer and repeated this many times. And they also reminded us to forgive and to heal our relationships and to let go of our earthly attachments. They also felt it was very important for us to protect the children so that they could survive and seed the new earth. Now, in summary of this audio series, we've gathered in common thread themes with prophecy, with scripture, and with science to see more clearly the bigger, more cosmic view of what's happening with our earth. I'm going to remind you to check out Ben Davidson, because he does he's really excellent in explaining from a scientific perspective all about the galactic current sheet and the magnetic pole shift and all of that. The elders and scripture emphasize that this great shift is about a spiritual transition, And we're reminded to focus on our relationship with our divine source and to put our inner affairs in order as a priority in preparing ourselves for this great transition. At the very same time, we all know that there's a lot of chaos in political arenas, economic instability, more violence in the streets, our food systems will be compromised, energy grid is losing reliability, and also we are experiencing earthquakes and floods, fires, volcanoes, hurricanes, and pretty much just about everything else in between, like super soldiers and AI and alien invasions and genocide and pandemics and wars and lockdowns. There's probably more on this list of horrifying things that we are all facing. But I do believe it's possible to hunker and endure, keep our prayers strong, help each other through. And I have to remind myself that it is more important how we live than if we live. I'm going to leave you all with links posted below and how to find information on physically surviving all of these changes. And remember that the matrix conditioning is pretty thick. And hopefully these audios can help break through some of the programming and false beliefs of the matrix. On my website, you'll see that I also offer human design sessions as a professional analyst. And I'm saying that because this body of knowledge is an effective deconditioning tool, deconditioning process, which brings each of us back into our more authentic nature. And I'll explain how that works on the website. I encourage you all to listen to this audio maybe 2 or 3 times to remember the elders' words and these soul nurturing truths. The elders' teachings and scriptures can be like a lantern in dark times. And I'd like to thank each listener, each one of you out there, for tuning an ear to this audio. I warmly invite you to contact me if you resonate with this material. Relatives, this is Marta, bidding you farewell in the spirit of unity and truth.